Good morning, and welcome
Morning.
to Quest's Acting Workshop's annual end-of-the-year production. And today we're delighted to present Under Milkwood by Dylan Thomas. I want to tell you, in the theater, there is a saying, there can only be one director. And for the most part, that is very true. Well, we defied the odds. And I want to thank my two coordinating directors, Clary and Panny King. We worked together wonderfully well. I believe it had to do with mutual respect. And also I think we all had the same, vision. It was very rewarding, and I think we all grew from the experience on many levels. But I especially want to thank our actors for their very hard work and dedication. And I mean dedication. Hours and hours of rehearsals for the entire semester, frequently to the exclusion of everything else. Never complaining, just always here and working, and it's been a pleasure for us to work with all of them, and I don't know how to thank them except to say, thank you, cast. And now you are going to see the fruits of our labor, Under Milkwood. On with the show. Enjoy.
To begin at the beginning. It is spring. It's a moonless night in the small town, starless and Bible black. The cobble streets silent, and the hunched wood limps invisible down to the slow black fishing boat bobbing sea. The houses are blind as Captain Cat. And all the people of the lulled and dumbfound town are sleeping now. The babies are sleeping. Young girls lie bedded soft or glide in their dreams with rings and trousseaux. The boys are dreaming of the bucking ranches of the night and the jolly Rogered sea. Listen. Oh, listen. You can hear the dew falling and the town breathing. Only your eyes are unclosed to see the black and folded town fast and slow asleep. Listen. It is night moving in the streets. It is night in the chill, squat chapel. It is night in Donkey Street, trotting silent along the cockled cobbles. It is night, neddying among the snuggeries of babies.
Look, it is night, dumbly, royally winding through the carnation cherry trees, going through the graveyard of Bethesda with winds gloved and folded and dew doffed, tumbling by the Sailor's Arms Saloon. Time passes. Listen, time passes. Come closer now. Only you can hear the houses sleeping in the streets, in the slow, deep, salt, and silent black bandaged night. Only you can see in the blinded bedrooms the combs and petticoats over the chairs, the jugs and basins, the glasses of teeth. Only you can hear and see behind the eyes of the sleepers the movements and countries and mazes and colors and dismays and rainbows and tunes and wishes and flight and fall and despairs and big seas of their dreams. From where you are, you can hear their dreams.
Captain Cat, the retired blind sea captain asleep in his bunk in the seashell, the ship-in-bottled, ship-shape, best cabin of schooner house, dreams of never such seas as any that swamped the decks of his SS Kidwelly, bellying over the bedclothes and jellyfish slippery sucking him down salt deep into the Davy Dark, where the fish come biting out and nibble him down to his wishbone, and the long drowned nuzzle up to him.
Remember me, Captain?
You're Dancing Williams.
I lost my step in Nantucket.
You see me, Captain? I'm Tori Probert, the donkey man. We shared the same girl once. Her name was Mrs. Probert.
Rosie Probert, 33 Duck Lane. Come on up, boys. I'm dead.
Hold me, Captain. I'm Jonah Jarvis. Come to a bad end. Very enjoyable.
Oh, my dead dears.
Miss Price, dressmaker and sweet shop keeper, dreams of her lover, scooping low over her lonely, loving, hot water bottled body.
My phony press.
Mr. Mog Edwards.
I'm a draper, mad with love. I love you more than all the flannelette and calico, candlewick and twill and ticking, and the whole cloth hall of the world. I've come to take you away to my emporium on the hill, where I shall warm the sheets like an electric toaster, where I shall lie by your side like the Sunday roast.
And I will knit you a wallet of forget-me-not blue for the money to be comfy. I will warm your heart by the fire so that you can slip it under your vest when the shop is closed.
Ah, Mafanwy, before the mice gnaw at your bottom drawer, will you say,
Yes, Mog. Yes, Mog. Yes, yes, yes.
and all the bells of the tills of the town shall ring for our wedding.
And in the little pink-eyed cottage next to the undertaker's lies Mr. Waldo, rabbit catcher, barber, herbalist, cat doctor, quack. He dreams of
This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy had roast beef. This little piggy had none. And this little piggy cried, wee, 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 all the way home to Waldo. Waldo!
Oh, yes, Bloodwood love.
Oh, what'll the neighbors say? What'll the neighbors say? Poor Mrs. Waldo.
What she puts up with.
Never should have married.
If she didn't had to.
Same as her mother.
There's a husband for you.
Bad as his father.
And you know where he ended.
Up in the asylum.
Crying for his ma.
Every Saturday.
He hasn't got a leg.
And carrying on.
With that Mrs. Beatty Morris.
It's got his nose.
Haven't seen her baby.
What'll he do for a drink?
Oh, it makes my heart bleed. He sold the pianola.
And her sewing machine, too.
Falling in the gutter.
Talking to the lamppost.
And using language.
Singing in the water closet.
Send him to bed without any supper.
Lock him in the dark.
Off to the reformatory for him.
off to the reformatory
And learn him with a slipper on his BTM.
Now, in her iceberg white crinoline nightgown, under virtuous polar sheets, in her spruced and scoured, dust-defying bedroom in trig and trim Bayview, a house for paying guests at the top of the town, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard, widow, twice, of Mr. Ogmore, linoleum, retired, and Mr. Pritchard, failed bookmaker, who, maddened by besoming, swabbing, and scrubbing, the voice of the vacuum cleaner and the fume of polish, ironically swallowed disinfectant, fidgets in her rinsed sleep, wakes in a dream, and nudges in the ribs, dead Mr. Ogmore, dead Mr. Pritchard, ghostly on either side.
Mr. Ogmore, Mr. Pritchard, it's time to inhale your balsam.
Oh, Mrs. Ogmore.
Oh, Mrs. Pritchard.
Soon it'll be time to get up. Tell me your tasks, but in order.
All right, well, I must put on my pajamas in a drawer marked pajamas.
I must take my cold bath, which is good for me.
And I must wear my flannel band to ward off sciatica.
I must dress behind the curtain and put on my apron.
I must blow my nose.
I must take my salts, which are nature's friend.
I must boil the drinking water because of germs.
I must dust the blinds, and then I must raise them.
And before you let the sun in, mind you, wipes its nose.
Oh, yes, dear. In Butcher Bainen's, Gossamer Bainen, daughter, schoolteacher, dreaming deep, daintily ferrets under a fluttering hummock of chicken's feathers in a slaughterhouse that has chintz curtains and a three-pieced suite. She finds a small, rough, ruddy man with a bushy tail winking in a paper carrier.
Oh, at last, my love.
Sighs Gossamer Bainen, and the bushy tail wags rude and ginger.
Oh!
Cries Organ Morgan, the organist, in his dream. All the spouses are honking like geese, and the babies singing opera.
Yeah, and at the sea end of town, Mr. Utah Watkins counts all night the wife-faced sheep as they leap the fences on the hill, smiling and knitting and bleating, just like Mrs. Utah Watkins.
34, 35, 36, 48, 89.
Knit one, slip one, knit the two together, pass the slip stitch over.
Hockey Milkman, drowned asleep in Cockle Street, is emptying his churns into the Dewey River. Regardless of expense, and weeping like a funeral.
Cherry Owen, next door, lifts a tankard to his lips, but nothing flows out of it. He shakes the tankard. It turns into a fish. He drinks the fish. Willie Nilly Postman, asleep up street, walks 14 miles to deliver the post, as he does every day of the night, and rat-a-tats hard on Mrs. Willy-Nilly.
Don't spank me, please, teacher.
Whimpers his wife at his side, but every night of her married life, she has been late for school.
Sinbad Sailors, over the tap room of the Sailor's Arms Saloon, hugs his damp pillow, whose secret name is Gossamer Bainen. A mogul catches Lily Smalls in the wash house.
Oh, you mogul!
Mrs. Rose Cottage's eldest, May, peels off her pink and white skin in a furnace, in a tower, in a cave, in a waterfall, in a wood, and waits there, raw as an onion, for Mr. Right to leap up the burning tall, hollow splashes of leaves like a brilliantine trout.
Call me Dolores. like they do in the stories.
Alone until she dies, Bessie Bighead, hired help, born in the workhouse, smelling of the cowshed, snores bass and gruff on a couch of straw in a loft in Salt Lake Farm, and picks a posy of daisies in Sunday Meadow to put on the grave of Gomer Owen, who kissed her once by the pigsty when she wasn't looking. Never kissed her again, although she was looking all the time.
Mr. Pugh, schoolmaster, fathoms asleep, pretends to be sleeping, spies Foxy around the corner of his sleep cap, and psst, whistles up, "Murder!"
Mrs. Organ Morgan, groceress, coiled gray like a dormouse, her paws to her ears, conjures silence.
She sleeps very dulcet in a cove of wool, and trumpeting Organ Morgan at her side snores no louder than a spider. In Donkey Street, so furred with sleep, Polly Garter and no good boyo sigh before the dawn that is about to be, and dream of babies.
Nothing.
Time passes. Listen. Time passes. An owl flies home past Bethesda House to an oak, and the dawn inches up. Now stand on this hill. Now this is Larragub Hill, old as the hills, high, cool, and green, and from this small circle of stones, you can see the town below you, sleeping in the first of the dawn. You can hear the lovesick pigeons mooning in bed. The town ripples like a lake in the waking haze.
Less than 500 souls inhabit the 3 quaint streets and the few narrow bylines and bylanes and scattered farmsteads that constitute this small decaying watering place, which may indeed be called a backwater of life, without disrespect to its natives, who possess to this day a salty individuality of their own.
The sky lightens now into spring morning, larked and crowed and belling.
The Reverend Eli Jenkins in Bethesda House gropes out of bed into his preacher's black, combs back his bard's white hair, forgets to wash, heads barefoot downstairs, opens the front door, stands in the doorway and looking out at the day and up at the eternal hill and hearing the sea break and the gab of birds, remembers his own verses.
Dear Gwalia, I know there are towns lovelier than ours, and fairer hills and loftier far, and groves more full of flowers, and boskier woods more blithe with spring, and bright with birds adorning, and sweeter bards than I to sing their praise this beauteous morning. A tiny dingle is Milkwood by Golden Grove neath Granger, but let me choose, and I should love all my life and longer to stroll among our trees and stray on Goosey-Gag Lane on Donkey Down and hear the dewy sing all day and never, never leave the town.
Now woken at last by the out-of-bed sleepyhead, Polly put the kettle on town hall bell. Lily Smalls, Mrs. Bainen's treasure, comes downstairs from a dream of royalty who all night long went larking with her, full of sauce in the Milkwood dark. She puts the kettle on the Primus ring in Mrs. Bainen's kitchen and looks at herself in Mr. Bainen's shaving glass over the sink and sees,
Oh, there's a face. Where'd you get that hair from? Got it from an old tomcat. Give it back then, love. Oh, there's a perm. Where'd you get that nose from, Lily? Got it from my father, silly. You got it on upside down. Oh, there's a conk. Look at your complexion. Oh no, you look. Needs a bit of makeup. Needs a veil. Oh, there's glamour. Where'd you get that smile, Lil? Never you mind, girl. Nobody loves you. That's what you think. Who loves you, Lil? Chantel. Come on, Lily. Cross your heart then. Cross my heart.
Very softly, her lips almost touching her reflection, she breathes the name and clouds the shaving glass.
Lily,
Yes, Mom.
where's my tea, girl?
Where do you think, in the cat box? Yes, coming up, Mom.
Mr. Pugh in the schoolhouse opposite takes up the morning tea to Mrs. Pugh and whispers on the stairs,
Is your arsenic, dear, and your weed killer biscuit. I've throttled your parakeet. I've spit in the vases. I put cheese in the mouse holes. Is your nice tea, dear?
Too much sugar,
You haven't tasted it yet, dear.
too much milk then. Has Mr. Jarvis said his poetry yet?
Yes, dear.
Then it's time to get up. Give me my glasses. Not my reading glasses. I want to look out. I want to see Lily Smalls down on her red knees washing the front stoop. She's tucked her dress into her bloomers. Oh, the baggage. The constable's going to arrest Polly Garter today, mark my words.
What for, dear?
For having babies.
Morgan at his bedroom window, playing chords on the sill to the morning fishwife gulls who, heckling over Donkey Street, observed,
Me, Mrs. Diebread, Captain Shaw, no old corset. Nice to be comfy. Nice to be nice, cobble 'em on the cobblestones to stir up a neighbor. Ah, Mrs. Sarah, did you spare a loaf, lovey? I forgot the bread. How's your boils this morning? Ah, that's real good news. It's nice to be able to sit down for a change. Tom, Mrs. Sarah.
Me, no good boyo. Up to no good in the wash house.
Me, Miss Price, deaf at the clothesline, natty as a Jenny Wren, pick-pack back to my egg in its cozy, my crisp toast fingers, my homemade plum and butter pat.
Me, Polly Garter. Under the washing line, giving the breast here in the garden to my bonny new baby. Nothing grows in this garden, only washing and babies. Where's their fathers live, my love? Over the hills and far away. I know what you're thinking. You're looking up at me now. You're thinking, you're no better than you should be, Polly. And that's good enough for me. Oh, isn't life a terrible thing? Thank God.
now frying pans spit, kettles and cats purr in the kitchen. The town smells of seaweed and breakfast all the way down from Bayview, where Mrs. Ardmore Pritchard picks at her starchless bread and sips lemon rind tea, to Bottom Cottage, where Mr. Waldo in bowler and bib gobbles his bubble and squeak and kippers and swigs from the sauce bottle.
Mr. Pugh remembers ground glass as he juggles his omelet.
Mrs. Pugh nags the salt cellar.
Willy-nilly, postman, downs his last bucket of black brackish tea.
Mrs. Willy-nilly, full of tea, to her double-chin brim broods and bubbles over her coven of kettles on the hissing hot range, always ready to steam open the mail.
The Reverend Eli Jenkins finds a rhyme and dips his pen in his cocoa.
Mr. and Mrs. Cherry Owen, in their Donkey Street room that is bedroom, parlor, kitchen, and scullery, sit down to the last night's supper of onions boiled in their overcoats.
See that smudge on the wall near the picture of Auntie Blossom? That's where you threw the sago. You only missed me by an inch.
I always miss Auntie Blossom, too.
Remember last night? In you reeled, my boy. You were drunk as a deacon and with a big wet bucket and a fish frail full of stout. And you looked at me and you said, God has come home. And then you were sprawling and bawling, and the floor was all flagons and eels.
Oh, was I wounded?
And then you took off your trousers and you said, does anybody want to fight? Oh, you old baboon.
Give me a kiss, baby. Oh.
And then you sang Bread of Heaven, and you were tenor and bass.
I always sing Bread of Heaven.
Oh, drop dead.
And then what did I do?
Then you cried like a baby, and you said you were poor, drunk, orphan, with nowhere to go but the grave.
Oh, and what did I do next, my dear?
Then you danced on the table, and you said you were King Solomon Owen, and I was your Mrs. Sheba.
Oh, and then?
And then I got you into bed, and you snored all night like you were a brewery.
Oh.
From Bain Butcher's in Carnation Street, the smell of fried liver sidles out with onions on its breath. And listen. In the dark breakfast room behind the shop, Mr. and Mrs. Bain, waited upon by their treasure, Lily Smalls, enjoy between bites their every morning hullabaloo.
She likes the liver, Ben.
She ought to do best. It was her brother's.
Did you hear that, Lily?
Yes, Mom.
We're eating puss cat.
Oh, yes, Mom.
Oh, you cat butcher.
Well, it was doctored, mind.
What's that got to do with it?
Yesterday we had mole.
Oh, Lily.
Monday otter. Tuesday shrews.
Go on, Mrs. Bain, and he's the biggest liar in town.
Don't you dare say that about Mr. Bainan.
But everybody knows it, Mom.
Mr. Bainan never tells a lie. Do you, Ben?
No, Bess. And now I'm going out after the corgis with my little cleaver.
Oh, Lily!
All over the town, babies and old men are cleaned and put into their broken prams and wheeled onto the sunlit cockled cobbles or out into the backyards under the dancing underclothes and left. A baby cries, noses are white, heads picked, hair combed, paws scrubbed, ears boxed, and the children shrilled off to school.
No good boyo goes out in the dinghy, drifts slowly in the dab-filled bay, and lying on his back among crab's legs and tangled lines, looks up at the spring sky and says,
I don't know who's up there, and I don't care.
That's willy-nilly knocking, rat-a-tat. Who sent a letter to Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard?
Good morning, postman.
Oh, here's a letter for you, with stamped and addressed envelope provided. A gentleman wants to study birds And can he have accommodation for 2 weeks and a bath vegetarian?
No.
Oh, you wouldn't even know he was in the house, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard. He'd be out in the mornings at the bang of dawn with a bag of breadcrumbs and his little telescope.
And come home at all hours, covered with feathers? I don't want persons in my nice clean rooms breathing all over the chairs.
Oh, cross my heart, he won't breathe.
And putting my feet on my carpets, and sneezing on my china, and sleeping in my streets.
He only wants a single bed, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard.
And back she goes to the kitchen to polish the potatoes.
And Captain Cat hears willy-nilly's feet heavy on the distant cobbles.
Morning, Mrs. Pugh. Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard won't have a gentleman in because he'll sleep in her sheets.
Give me the parcel.
Oh, wait, it's from Mr. Pugh, Mrs. Pugh.
Never you mind. What's inside it?
It's a book called Lives of the Great Poisoners.
All the women are out this morning in the sun. You can tell it's spring. There goes Mrs. Cherry. You can tell by her trotters. Off she trots, new as a daisy. Who's that talking by the pump? Mrs. Floyd and Boyo talking flatfish. What can you talk about flatfish? That's Mrs. Diebread waltzing up the street like jelly. Every time she shakes it, slap, slap, slap. Can't hear what the women are gabbing around the pump. Same as ever. Who's having a baby? Who blacked whose eye? Seen Polly Garter giving her belly an airing? There should be a law. Seen Mrs. Boynton's new mauve jumper? It's her old gray jumper dyed. Who's dead? Who's dying? There's a lovely day. Oh, the cost of soap flakes. Hockey milkmen on the round. I will say this, the milk's as fresh as the dew. Half dew it is. Shuffle on, Hockey. Watering the town. Hush. There's a hush. You can tell by the noise of the hushes. Polly Garter. Hello, Polly. Who's there?
Me, love.
That's Polly Garter. Hello, Polly, my love. Can you hear the dumb goose hiss of the wives as they huddle and peck or flounce at a waddle away? Who coddled you when? Which of the gandering hubbies moaned in milkwood for your naughty mothering arms and a body like a wardrobe, love?
The town's half over with its mourning, and it's busy as bees.
Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard
La-di-da.
got a man.
And he got a little telescope to look at birds.
Willy-nilly said,
Remember her first husband? He didn't need a telescope.
He locked them in undressing through that keyhole.
And he used to shout, "Tally-ho!"
but Mr. Ogmore was a proper gentleman.
Even though he hanged his collie.
Seen Mrs. Butcher Bainin?
She said Butcher Bainin put dogs in the mincer.
Oh, go on. He's pulling his leg.
Now don't you dare tell her that. There's a dear.
Or he'll think he's trying to pull it off and eat it.
There's a nasty lot we have here when you come to think.
Look at that boyo now.
Too lazy to wipe his own snout.
And going out fishing every day. And all he ever brought back was a Mrs. Samuels?
Been in the water all week.
And look at Aki Milkman's wife, who nobody has ever seen.
He keeps her in the cupboard with his empty.
And think of dye bread with 2 wives.
One for the daytime, one for the night.
Oh, men are brutes on the quiet.
And how's Organ Morgan, Mrs. Morgan?
You look deadbeat.
It's Organ, all the time with him.
Up every night, playing till midnight on the organ.
Oh, I'm a martyr to music.
And in willy-nilly the postman's dark and sizzling, damp, tea-coated, misty pygmy kitchen, where the spitting cat kettles throb and hop on the range, Mrs. Willy-nilly steams open Mr. Mogg Edwards' letter to Mafanwy Price. And this is what he wrote.
Dear Mafanwy, I love you until death do us part, and then we shall be together forever and ever. A new parcel of ribbons has come from Carmarthen today, all the colors in the rainbow. I wish I could tie a ribbon in your hair, a white one, but it cannot be. I dreamed last night you were dripping wet, and you sat on my lap as the Reverend Eli Jenkins walked down the street. Business is very poorly. Polly Goddard bought 2 garters with roses, but she never got stockings, so what's the use, I say. I sold a packet of pins to Tom the sailor to pick his teeth. This goes on, I shall be in the poorhouse. My heart is in your bosom, and yours is in mine. God be with you always, Mafanwy, and keep you lovely for me in his heavenly mansion. I must stop now and remain your eternal Mogg Edwards.
Mrs. Dyebread 1 and Mrs. Dyebread 2 are standing outside their house in Donkey Lane, one darkly, one plumply, blooming in the quick, dewy sun. And Mrs. Dyebread 2 is looking into a crystal ball.
What do you see, lovey?
I see a feather bed with 3 pillows on it. And a text above the bed. I can't read the text. It says, God is love. Oh, there's great clouds blowing.
That's our bed.
And now it's vanished. The sun's spinning like a top. Who's that coming out of the sun? It's a hairy little man with big pink lips, and he's got a wall eye. It's dye bread.
It's dye? It's dye bread?
The feather bed is floating back. The little man's taking his boots off. He's pulling his shirt over his head. He's beating his chest with his fist, and he's climbing into bed.
Go on, go on.
There's 2 women in bed. He looks at both of them with his head cocked on one side, and he's whistling through his teeth. Now he grips his little arms around one of the women.
Which one? Which one?
I can't see anymore. There's great clouds blowing.
Ugh, the mean old clouds.
The Reverend Eli Jenkins, busy on his morning calls, stops outside the welfare hall to hear Polly Goddard as she sweeps the floors for the Mothers' Union dance tonight.
I loved a man, his name was Tom. He was strong as a bear and 2 yards long. I loved a man, his name was Dick. He was big as a barrel and 3 feet thick. I loved a man whose name was Harry. He was 6 feet tall and sweet as a cherry. But the one I loved best, awake or asleep, was little Willie Wee, who is 6 feet deep.
And the Reverend Jenkins hurries on through the town to visit the sick with jelly and poems.
And the morning school is over, and the naughty children tumble and rhyme on the cobbles.
Kiss me in Milkwood, or give me a penny. Oh, what's your name?
Dickie.
Dickie. Kiss me in Milkwood, Dickie, or give me a penny quickly.
Gwenny, I can't kiss you in Milkwood.
Why?
My mother says I mustn't.
Give me a penny.
I haven't got any.
Oh, put him in the river up to his liver. Quick, dirty Dick, beat him on the bum with a rhubarb stick.
And the shrill girls giggle and muster around him and squeal as they clutch and thrash, and he blubbers away downhill with his patched pants falling, and his tear-splashed blush burns all the way as the triumphant bird-like sisters scream with buttons in their claws, howling for his milky mum, for her caul and buttermilk and cow breath and Welsh cakes and the moonlit kitchen of her arms. He'll never forget as he paddles blind home through the weeping end of the world. And then his tormentors run to the Cockle Street sweet shop, their penny sticky as honey, to buy for Miss Mafanwy Price, who is cocky and neat as a puff-bosomed robin, and her small round buttocks tight as ticks. Gobstoppers big as wens, licorice sweet as sick, and gum to glue in curls, crimson cough drops to spit blood, and pop goes the weasel.
Gossamer Bainan, high heels out of school. The sun hums down through the cotton flowers of her dress into the bell of her heart, and buzzes in the honey there, and couches and kisses, lazy, loving, and boozed in her red-berried breast. Eyes run from the trees and the windows of the street, steaming gossamer, and strip her to the nipples. She blazes naked past the Sailor's Arms Saloon, the only woman on earth. Sinbad's sailors places on her thighs still dewlap from the man-growing cockcrow garden his reverent goat-bearded hands.
I don't care if he is common. I want to gobble him up. And I don't care if he does drop his H's, as long as he's all cucumbers and hooves.
Sinbad sailors watches her go by, demure and proud and schoolmarm in her crisp flowered dress and sun-defying hat, with never a look or lilt or wriggle, the butcher's unmelting ice-maiden daughter, veiled forever from the hungry hug of his eyes.
Oh, Gossamer Bainan, why are you so proud? Oh, beautiful, beautiful Gossamer Bee. I wish that you were for me. I wish you weren't so educated.
She feels his goat's beard tickle her in the middle of the world like a tuft of fire, and she turns in a terror of delight away from his whip and whiskery conflagration.
In the blind-drawn dining room of Schoolhouse, dusty and echoing as a vault, Mr. and Mrs. Pugh are silent over cold gray cottage pie. Mr. Pugh reads as he forks the shroud meat in from Lives of the Great Poisoners. He has bound a plain brown paper cover around the book. And slyly between slow mouthfuls, he side spies up at Mrs. Pugh, poisons her with his eye, and then goes on reading. He underlines certain passages and smiles in secret.
Persons with manners do not read at table.
Says Mrs. Pugh. She swallows a digestive tablet as big as a horse pill, washing it down with clouded pea soup water.
Some persons were brought up in pigsties.
Pigs don't read at table, my dear.
Bitterly, she flicks dust from the broken cruet. It settles on the pie in a thin gnat rain.
Pigs can't read, my dear.
I know one who can.
Now, alone in the hissing laboratory of his wishes, Mr. Pugh tiptoes through spinneys of murdering herbs and mixes especially for Mrs. Pugh a venomous porridge unknown to toxicologists, which will scald and viper through her until her ears fall off like figs, her toes grow big and black as balloons, and steam comes screaming out of her navel. Anyway, Mr. Pugh says, "You know best, dear," and then, quick as the flash, he ducks her in rat soup.
What's that book by your trough, Mr. Pugh?
Oh, it's a theological work, my dear. Lives of the great saints.
I saw you talking to a saint this morning, Saint Polly Garter. She was martyred again last night. Mrs. Organ Morgan saw her with Mr. Waldo.
And when they saw me, they pretended they were looking for nests.
Said Mrs. Organ Morgan to her husband, with her mouth full of fish as a pelican's.
But you don't go nesting in long combinations, I said to myself, like Mr. Waldo was wearing. And you're dressed neatly poured over your head like Polly Garter's. Oh, they didn't fool me.
One big bird gulp and the flounder's gone. She licks her lips and goes stabbing again.
When you think of all those babies that she's got, then all I can say is, she better give up bird nesting. That's all I can say. It isn't the right kind of hobby at all for a woman that can't say no, even to midgets. He wasn't any bigger than a baby, and he gave her 2. But they're nice boys, I will say that. Fred Spid and Arthur. Sometimes I like Fred best, and sometimes I like Arthur. Who do you like best, Organ?
Oh, Bach, without any doubt. Bach every time for me.
Oh, Organ Morgan, you haven't been listening to a word I said. It's Organ all the time with you.
And she bursts into tears, and in the middle of her salty howling, nimbly spears a small flatfish and pelicans it whole.
The lust and lilt and lather and emerald breeze and crackle of the bird praise and body of spring with its breasts full of riveting May milk means to that lordly fish-head nibbler in her double-locked, rusty-shuttered, tick-tock, dust-scrabbled shack that the town has fallen head over bells in love.
I'll never have that loving again. Now, when the farmer's boys on the first fair day come down from the hills to drink and be gay, before the sun sinks, I'll be in their arms, for they're good bad boys from the lonely farms. But I'll always think as we tumble into bed of little Willie Wee, who is dead, dead, dead.
The sunny, slow, lulling afternoon yawns through the dozy town. The sea lulls, laps, and idles in with fishes in its lap. The meadows still as Sunday. Clouds sag and pillow on Larragub Hill. pigs grunt in a wet wallow bath and smile as they snort and dream. They dream of the acorned swill of the world, the squeal and snuffle of yeses of the women pigs in rack. Their tails curl, they rollick and slobber and snore to deep, smug and after-swill sleep.
Persons with manners do not nod at table. You should wait until you retire to your sty,
says Mrs. Pugh, sweet as a razor. Mr. Pugh's fawning, measly quarter smile freezes. Sly and silent, he foxes into his chemist's den, and there, in a hiss of Prussic circle of cauldrons and phials, brimful with pox and the Black Death, cooks up a fricassee of deadly nightshade, nicotine, hot frog, cyanide, and bat spit for his needling stalactite hag and bednag of a poker-faced nutcracker wife.
I beg your pardon, my dear.
Captain Cat at his window, thrown wide to the sun, and the Clifford seas he sailed long ago when his eyes were blue and bright, slumbers and voyages. One voice he remembers most dearly as his dream buckets down. Rosy Probert with the flaxen thatch, whom he shared with Tom Fred the Donkey Man and many another seaman.
What seas do you see, Tomcat, Tomcat, in your sailoring days long, long ago? What sea beasts were in the wavering green when you were my master? What seas were rocking my little deckhand, my favored husband, in your sea boots and hunger? My honey, my husband, my pretty sugar sailor, with my name on your belly when you were a boy, long, long ago.
I'll tell you no lies. The only sea I saw was the seesaw sea, with you riding on it. Lie down. Lie easy. Let me shipwreck in your thighs.
Twice at the door of my grave and ask for Rosie.
Rosie Probert!
Remember her. She is forgetting. The earth which filled her mouth is vanishing from her. Remember me. I have forgotten you. I am going into the darkness, in the darkness forever. I have forgotten that I was ever born.
The afternoon buzzes like lazy bees round the flowers round Mayrose Cottage. Nearly asleep in the field of nanny goats who hum and gently butt the sun, she blows love on a puffball.
He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me, the dirty old fool.
Now the town is dusk. Each cobble, donkey, goose, and gooseberry street is a thoroughfare of dusk. And the sleep of birds drift under and through the live dusk of this place of love. Larrigub is the capital of dusk. Now, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard, at the first drop of the dusk shower, seals all her sea view doors, draws the germ-free blinds, and she sits erect as a dried dream on a high-backed genetic chair and wills herself to cold, quick sleep. At once, at twice, Mr. Ogmore and Mr. Pritchard, who all dead day long had been gossiping like ghosts in the woodshed, planning the loveless destruction of their glass widow, reluctantly sigh and sidle into her clean house.
You first, Mr. Ogmore.
Oh, no, after you, Mr. Pritchard.
No, Mr. Ogmore, you windowed her first.
And in through the keyhole, with tears where their eyes once were, they ooze and grumble.
Husbands,
She says in her sleep. There is acid love in her voice for one of the two shambling phantoms. Mr. Ogmore hopes that it is not for him, and so does Mr. Pritchard.
I love you both.
Oh, Mrs. Ogmore.
Oh, Mrs. Pritchard.
Soon it'll be time to go to bed. Tell me your tasks in order.
We must take our pajamas from the drawer marked pajamas.
And then you must take them off.
Down in the dusking town, Mayrose Cottage, still lying in clover, listens to the nanny goats chew and draws circles of lipstick round her nipples.
I am fast. I'm a bad lot. God will strike me dead. I'm 17 and I'll go to hell. You just wait. I'll sin till I blow up.
And at the doorway of Bethesda House, the Reverend Jenkins recites to Larragub Hill his sunset poem.
Every morning when I wake, dear Lord, a little prayer I make. Oh, please to keep thy lovely eye on all poor creatures born to die. And every evening at sundown, I ask a blessing on the town. For whether we last the night or no, I'm sure is always touch and go. We are not wholly bad or good, who live our lives under milkwood. And thou, I know, wilt be the first to see our best side, not our worst. Oh, let us see another day. Bless us this night, I pray. And to the sun we will all bow and say goodbye. But just for now.
And Lily Smalls is up to no good boyo in the wash house.
And Cherry Owen, sober as Sunday as he is every day of the week, goes off happy as Saturday to get drunk as a deacon as he does every night.
I always say she's got two husbands. One drunk and one sober.
And aren't I a lucky woman because I love them both?
Oh, yeah, you know.
Evening, Cherry.
Oh, evening, Sinbad.
What'll you have?
Oh, too much.
Sinbad suffers to himself, heartbroken.
The Sailor's Arms is always open. Dolores, why don't you open your arms?
It is all at once. It is all at once. It is all at once. Night now. The windy town is a hill of windows. And from the lapped waves, the lights of the lamps in the windows call back the day and the dead that have run away to sea. All over the calling dark, babies and old men are bribed and lullabied to sleep.
Hush-a-bye, baby. The Sandman is coming. Rock-a-bye, Grandpa, in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. And down will come Grandpa, whiskers and all.
Or their daughters cover up the old, unwinking men like parrots. And in their lit and bustling young kitchen corners, all night long they watch, beady-eyed, the long night through in case death catches them asleep.
Unmarried girls alone in their privately bridal bedrooms powder and curl for the dance of the world. They make, in front of their looking glasses, haughty or come-hithering faces for the young men in the street outside at the lamp-lit leaning corners who wait in the all-at-once wind to wolve and whistle.
Now the drinkers in the Sailor's Arms Saloon drink to the failure of the dance.
Down with the waltzing and the skipping. Dancing isn't natural.
Righteously says Cherry Owen, who has just downed 17 pints of flat, warm, thin, Welsh bitter beer and sings,
Whoa! In Pembroke City when I was young, I lived in the castle keep. For 6 pence a week was my wages for working as a chimney sweep. Oh, sweep, sweep, chimney sweep, 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 chimney sweep, 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 chimney sweep. Whoa!
Lying, the Captain Cat climbs into his bunk. Like a cat he sees in the dark. And through the voyages of his tears, he sails to see the dead.
Dancing Williams.
Still dancing.
Jonah Jarvis.
Still.
Rosie with God. She has forgotten dying.
The dead come out in their Sunday best.
Listen to the night breaking.
Organ Morgan goes to chapel to play the organ. He sees Bach lying on a tombstone.
Johann Sebastian. Who? Johann Sebastian, mighty Bach. Oh, Bach fuck.
Mr. Mogg Edwards and Miss Mafanwy Price, happily apart from one another at the top and the sea end of the town, write their every night letters of love and desire. In the warm white book of Larragub, you will find the little maps of the islands of their contentment.
Oh, my Mog, I am yours forever.
Come to my arms, Mafanwy.
And he hugs his lovely money to his own heart. And Mr. Waldo, drunk in the dusky wood, hugs his lovely Polly Garter under the eyes and rattling tongues of the neighbors and the birds. He does not care. He smacks his live red lips. But it is not his name that Polly Garter whispers as she lies under the oak and loves him back. 6 feet deep, that name sings in the cold earth.
But I always think as we tumble into bed of little Willie Wee, who is dead, dead, dead.
Well, as the lights are going off, the thin night also darkens. A breeze from the creased wind sighs the streets under milk-waking wood. The suddenly wind-shaken wood springs awake for the second dark time. This one spring day. Marilyn Rosen, come on.
For our wonderful directors. Panny is not here today. She is not well, but she also has flowers.
She's saying that Panny was not well, but we have flowers for her.
Oh.
So we'll see you at the lunch.
Yes.
What words you could put together?
What words?